Hello, Ron. Welcome to our podcast, Ink and Blood. And this is going to be our third episode. My name is Emre Uslu.
Mine is Kaniz Dulam. We want to talk about the place of Turkey in the world. For the last 100 years, the Turkish founder Ataturk, as well as his followers, have said that the destination of Turkey should be the West. For the last 20 years, since Erdogan came to power, it looks like Erdogan has issues with the West. And this is a major issue, not just for Turkey, but for the Middle East too. And I thought we could unpack it and share our views with you.
Yes. But do you think that Turkey really belonged to the West? I mean, think about all European accessing process between 2002 to 2010-ish, 2009. So Turkey was very much on board with all these European values and all others. But some people in Europe think that Turkey is not part of the Europe, right? In fact, when we see that the right wing on the rise in Europe, and they think that Turkey should not belong to Europe.
Well, in Europe is nobody's property. Europe is a set of values. Europe is a stage in development, if you will, in the history of humanity. Whether we like it or not, it's the birthplace of Renaissance. It's the birthplace of Enlightenment. It's the birthplace of industrialization. Um, Turkey is part of the Middle East primarily. The land mass is in Anatolia, which is the Bosphorus separates Anatolia from Europe. I think Ataturk had the idea right in terms of wanting to be part of this winning club, if you will, this place that had invented a lot of. It was the author of a lot of inventions, and it is also a set of values in terms of its freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, in terms of representative government, and up until 1920s, Turkey really didn't have elections per se. The first time Ottoman Empire had that constitution was in 1876, and then it was suspended in 1878 because of the war with Russia. And then it was reinstituted in 1908, but then the war came. And the constitution that Turkey adopted in 1920s, in 1924, it borrowed from Italy, from Switzerland, from Germany. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is the people who practiced it or the people who implemented it didn't really do what the Swiss do or what the Germans do or what the Italians do in terms of giving political space to their citizens. And for example, in Turkey, the Ataturk and his friends basically banned the Kurdish language, denied the very existence of the Kurds. So from the get-go, the problem was the intention was good, the implementation wasn't there. And since Erdogan came to power, I think initially Erdogan really truly wanted to be part of the EU because he wanted to be rid of the military that was, repeatedly taking over toppling the civilian governments, and then replacing them with, hand-picked successors, and then there were elections. But it didn't, the moment he felt like he had enough power, he challenged the military with the help of the police, and then he is now the absolute ruler. So if he wants to be like Europeans, he needs to act like Europeans. I don't think in any part of Europe you have a banned language, and in Turkey you do.
I mean, yeah, but on the one hand, yes, but at the same time, I think the Turkish people are very much flexible. Whenever the leaders want, wherever they want, the leaders wanted to take them, I think they will easily come. I think that's an advantage for any leader that has a vision in Turkey. I mean, we have seen in 1980s and 90s with Turkish Özal's liberalization in society, people very much, for it. And again, in the first 10 years of Erdogan, people were very much happy with the accession process of European Union. But after that, just today, just yesterday, when Turkish national team was defeated by Netherlands, when one of the players, Turkish player, was asked, "What do you think about the match?" And he was a German-born, German citizen playing for Turkish national team, and he said the following: "Being a Turk in this world is tough thing because you're fighting against all over the world." And I responded that, does the world that you're fighting against know this? And then now thousands of comments are on my Twitter, and of course cursing me and saying all nasty things. Here is the reality, Connie. The people of Turkey really think that the world are against them, and they think that they fight against the world.
Well, it reminds
Can
me.
you be a part of the West with this mentality?
It reminds me of a Vietnamese proverb: "The people are like grass, and the leadership is like wind. If the wind blows south, the grass, turns south. If the wind blows north, the grass turns north."
I mean,
Uh,
is it really that European and the Western people is like that? Think about this. Sorry to this disrupt here, but think about what has happened in France yesterday, and
well,
think about what happened in United States against Trump.
well, I would say, Turkey is it has a authoritarian past. Um, it is journey with the West, its experiments with the democracy, compared to its history, is relatively young. It hasn't really traveled in that road for very long. Um, the earlier we talked about political Islam. The word Islam means submission. Uh, like some people would say giving into authority. Some people would say respecting authority. The problem we have in the Middle East is, of course, those who are in authority don't respect the people. Authority comes with responsibility, but they don't do that. So I would say if Turkey had the right leadership, let's say Turgut Özal to a certain degree was came with had a civilian background, had an economics background, had worked for World Bank, had lived in the West, and he had a lot of ideas in terms of uplifting the economy, and he would have in that sense been a good role model. But we haven't had if you really add up the last 100 years, and if you count the number of governments that have come to power, we haven't had good role models, and because we don't have this, even though he was born in Germany, this soccer player that you're talking about, he is socially Turkish. He probably reads the Turkish newspaper. He probably, hasn't really, I guess, interacted with Germans a lot. The world is not against Turkey. The world, as I agree with you, is not aware of Turkey. If Turkey or if Turks want to have a place in the world, they need to understand the world. They need to know where the world is going, and they need to interact with it. The world has other issues. The world has other problems. It doesn't have time to deal with the shortcomings of the Turks or with the issues that Turks face, unless, of course, Turks threaten the world or hurt the world.
Yeah, I think I understand. I think the Turks have an inferiority complex. That's a big problem against the West. I mean, this is the big problem. If Turkey know its place, I mean, it has a great history. I know we're discussing the Turkey in the West or in the past, and I think Turks wanted to go toward the West uh, from the past. I mean, Turkey is watching the West from the rear mirror in its car and think that they can go and reach the West by going the opposite direction. That opposite direction is being captivated by the past. I think at some degree it is necessary to you know galvanize or use the past to create one national unity, national identity to some degree. It is necessary, but too much of the past is really dangerous, and it create a trap for the people, and they wanted to live in the past, and they wanted to glorify whether the invented reality or the reality itself. I don't know how great Ottoman was. I mean, now they will bash me for for stating that Ottoman was not that great in terms of different uh, factors, such as invention. There was no invention in Ottoman Empire. Think about this. And invention of all these printing machine came very much late. And in terms of scientific discoveries, there was none. And last week I was in Pittsburgh. I saw a 20-store building, high rise, was built in 1906. And I thought that what was happening in 1906 in Ottoman Empire, when the Americans were building all this skyscraper in 1906 in New York, in Pittsburgh, in all major cities, I thought, well, Ottoman once built a great mosques and huge invention, but in 1906, 19 or 1890s, Ottoman were very much, the sick man of Europe. And now the people wanted to glorify the past and reinvent the past, and now they think that Sultan Abdul Hamid was the great leader, the leader of the collapsing Ottoman Empire. Now all of a sudden becomes a great leader, and Turkey cannot really escape from this past. In order for Turks to be a part of Europe, I think they should just abandon the past. I'm not saying that they should forget about it, or they should curse the past like the mistake that Kemalists did. They should come to terms with the past and move on. I mean, can Turk really move on from the past?
Well, the past is like our parents. I mean, we cannot deny our parents. Let's say my dad is blind in one eye, or limping, or cannot use his arm. Can I disown him? No, he's my dad. I have to respect him. I have to accept him. I have to, if I'm worth my salt, I have to love him. This is our past. Our past. I think we have to accept it. Ataturk, to a certain degree, wanted to, deny it to the Ottoman, to the Turks, and he thought there was a lot of, ignorance there. There was a lot of uh, stagnation in the Ottoman past, and he thought he could just simply change the alphabet and say that we're going to be part of Europe, and then the Turks will be part of Europe. Stephen Kinzer wrote a book about Turkey. He is a New York Times reporter who
Yeah.
served in Turkey between 1996 and 2000, and it's called "The Crescent and the Star." And in it, he makes an observation about the Turkish national drink, rakı. It's clear, it's like water, you can see through. And he says, when you come to Turkey, you look at Turkey and you see they talk about democracy, they talk about um, progress, they talk about rule of law, and you see through the bottle of rakı, and you say you're hopeful. And then he says the way Turks drink rakı is they add water to it, and it becomes like ayran. And then he says, then it's like foggy. And then he says, when you drink it, you get a little bit drunk, and then you realize that Turkey is not really that, democratic. Is not really that, uh, rule of law. Is not really that open society. And I think he's right. I think when Turks look through their glasses, they look outside through their culture. They see through foggy glasses. They look through foggy glasses, and they don't really see the world. And they think they live in a perfect world. Their past was glorious, but even that past was there were a lot of problems. I'll just give you one example. In 1577 in Istanbul, on the Asian side, it was Sultan Murad III's time. They built an observatory, to look at the skies. And then it just happened that right around that time there was a comet, and Sultan ordered his astronauts or his people in the observatory to look into this to see what's going on. And the people working there, they were so afraid of the Sultan. They thought they wanted to please him. They said, "Well, it means that you're going to invade Persia, and then you're going to be victorious, and you're going to win." And then right around that time, there was a plague that hit the Ottoman Empire. And then the soldiers didn't, they thought, that comet brought about that plague, and that these people are playing with stars, and this is really unhealthy. They went and burned it down. Um, you know, this is the past of the Ottoman. Sultan Murad III fathered 103 children. This is the past. If Turks want to really be, understand their past, and I want to tie it with the Ataturk, the same Ataturk that supposedly put Turkey on the right track, and people like Stephen Kinzer say, "Wow, he's great." Um, they asked him what does he think of women? What does he find what does he find attractive about women? And he said availability. This is the leader that now is on every dollar or every lira. Is every school has his picture, every courthouse carries his picture. And I'm not saying let's disown him. All I'm saying is let's understand him. If he was sexist, we have to say he was sexist. If he didn't believe in the rights of the Kurds, a minority, a sizable minority, then we should say he was a racist.
But
If he didn't.
but Ataturk himself, I mean, I think we should be fair to him, and he was given the voting rights to women before Italy, I think France and many other European countries as at the same time. We should also give credit for that as well, don't you think?
Yes, we should. And I am saying he had the right intentions, but I kind of wish he was, a practicing Democrat. See, if you don't practice democracy, if you don't have democratic values, if you don't have a liberal point of view, you cannot you cannot sustain democracy. Autocracy brings violence with it. And he was in power for how long? Since he established the republic and until he passed away. Only his successor let elections take place. But elections were taking place in England, for centuries. Elections were taking place in France for decades, in America for centuries. So for him to say that, I want to be part of the West without really adopting Western values was his shortcoming. And I think people like Stephen Kinzer should not praise him. If anything, they should analyze him. They should help the Turks understand him and maybe Turks will make the right decision and adopt the European values for themselves, not for because of Germans, because of French, because of English. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, go ahead, please.
it's when in 1853 Americans made it to Japan. The Japanese had, their own form of government, but soon they found out that they have to be able to compete with Netherlands, with America, with England, and in 1889 they adopted a constitution, and they, adopted the they sent their kids to Western schools. They scientifically wanted to learn about the West. And, Turks to this day, I would say, they don't really want to learn about Europe, like in terms of what Europe stands for. What they want to learn from Europe is how European guns are made and how they could buy it and how they could use it. But that's not, if you really want to be part of Europe, you need to also learn how, in England, for example, there was this thing called Magna Carta way back 1215, when the uh, um, uh, nobility limited the power of the king. To this day, 2024, no Turkish leader likes his power or her power to be limited.
Yeah,
So
I think there is one thing I need to change. Since you mentioned Stephen Kinzer and all other Western observers, there is a problem here. That since we're discussing the perspective of the West, Turkish perspective toward the West, and the Western perspective toward this, many experts who comes to Turkey and lives there and stays there see glorifying or hopeful Turkey, as he pointed out, and many Westerners as well. I think the reason for being so positive about Turkey because they mingle with the people like Europeans who went to Europe, educated in Europe, and lives in a fancy places in Istanbul and major metropolitan area. They know how to speak languages. Simply what we call it the white Turks. Then they may mingle with it, and they think that the rest of Turkey is somewhat similar to those people, Western-minded people. And the more they stay, and the more goes and travels inside Anatolia, and the more they understand and they see the white Rakı rather than see-through Rakı in Anatolia. I mean that is one problem that I have seen when I was writing a PhD thesis on the Kurdish question. Every Western scholar who wrote something about the Kurds were, telling me that the Kurds were more liberal, secular people. And I said, look, I think this is a major misconception. Kurds are pious Muslim people, even more pious than the Turks. And you only you only think that the Kurds, same thing with the Turks as well, are secular, modern-minded people, because the people you deal with, people you talk to, the lawyers, doctors, and all these intellectuals, yes, they are secular, intellectual, Western-oriented people, but the ordinary people in the street are religious, ordinary, pious, like Turkish pious and the Kurdish pious. I think that is one problem. That's, I think, why it is important for us to bring whatever the truth is on the ground, because we are sons of this place. I think we should tell the truth, all the truth about this society. That is one problem. But also, we should also give credit, I think, the Turks. Yes, Atatürk had a good intention. I think he also had some few good things. And you mentioned that Japan sent their students to Europe, and I'm one of them. And Turkey too sent their students to Europe and United States. In fact, when Erdogan came to United States, I think back in 2007 or 2008, he had a famous press conference with John Kerry. And John Kerry was saying that Turkey, among all Muslim countries, is the number one country who sent their students to United States, 2005, 2006, 2007. The question here is this: what happened to those students who went back to the country? And I think that's the problem. When the students who got educated from the West and went back to country, they are isolated themselves, or the society isolate themselves. There is a term called pejorative terms, John Turk, right? The young Turks who studied in Europe, France, and they went back to Ottomans, and the Ottoman public did not receive them well because they were too European, too secular. This just doesn't fit in Anatolia. And the government simply did not listen to them because they were too alienated in the West, and they were not acceptable by the majority of the Turks. I think that was the problem, because the Turkish culture really is not compatible at some degree with the Western culture.
Well, culture enables one to look at the world. In the Middle East, I believe, with the Islamic background that we have, especially those of us who believe in the place of Islam in politics, we tend to look at the world in a way that the world is less than what it is, that we are better off. And, I think the students that you're talking about, I personally believe they are the messengers of peace, in the sense that they bring cultures together. People who don't know very much from Turkey, let's say, come to America, they have these preconceived ideas about America or about Germany or about France, and then they come and they stay with exchange families. Their world changes.
Yeah.
Erdogan himself sent 4 of his kids to America. There are 420,000 Chinese students in America right now, but China is 1.5 billion people. So I'm a big advocate of exchange students. It brings cultures together. It may even pave the way for peace, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We want, good things for our children. We want peace. We want stability. We want good healthcare. Yeah, but I mean, one thing you said, the Kurds haven't really been in charge of their destiny. They have been subjects. The Turks have been, in the driving seat, whether it's during the Ottoman Empire or whether it's during this experiment called Turkish Republic. And while some Turks may say, I don't want to have anything to do with the Germans or with the French or with the English or with the Americans, I think, I think educated Turks, are curious just like any other people. It's not like they say, yes, we have some who are, racists, and we have them in America and we have them in Germany too. But I think there are a lot of people who also are curious and who welcome tourists to visit, Turkey, and, they make money from them too in terms of tourist dollars. So overall, though, I think, I would say Turkey is more open to the West than Syria is, than Iraq is, than Iran is, partly because Turkey has dealt with all these countries over the years. Initially, yes, it was it invaded Europe. Then it was it became a declining power. Then it was defeated. But this is our past. We cannot make a lot of we cannot change our past. What we can do is learn from it and move on. So I still think Europe has a lot to Turks and Kurds have a lot to learn from Europe, from Germans, from French, from Americans. I have been in this country for 44 years. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I've learned quite a bit. And I think if people like me are able, let's say, are able to go to Turkey or Kurdistan, I think we could be a bridge for the, changing things for the better. If Turkish students or Kurdish students become more curious about software programs, or become more curious about, finding cure for cancer, or addressing, health problems instead of hurting each other, instead of killing each other, instead of getting in each other in each other's hair. I think it would be good for the region. We could, Europe has managed to address these issues. We haven't, and we could too.
I mean, yes, and many Turks and Kurds come to Europe and find cures to COVID. The shot that they found was found by a couple Turks, and got Nobel prizes for repairing DNAs and get economically top places. But I think Turkey, like, is a place that for its children, I think it's a tough love, and they never accept them to leave them alone, the country as a system. But at the same time, and the Turks cannot really live Turkey alone. I mean, look at you. You've been here in last 40 years, and you cannot really live Turkey alone, and Turkey cannot leave you alone. Think about this, and think about myself. I was sent over here to get educated and study in American universities, and I did it successfully. I went back to country, and now what they have done, and I mean, because I'm disagreeing with the current regime, and well, they treat me, one of the dissidents, and thank the United States, and they provide me home in this tough situation. I mean,
well,
under these circumstances, can really Turkey be a part of the West or be in the West? I am not so positive about it.
Well, I am optimistic. I mean, Turkey is not exempt from evolutionary changes. Today's Turkey is definitely different than 100 years ago. It's more educated. It's more, even though it doesn't accept the reality of the Kurds, it is more interacts with the world in a way that it didn't know how to interact with the world 100 years ago. The hope is, it will be more tolerant. It will be more accepting of others. It will let go of, the racist ideology that it has right now, the supremacy of one people over the other. I mean, we don't choose, what we like to say that Turks are better than Kurds is like to say the red rooster is better than the yellow rooster. I mean, this is crazy. Roosters are roosters,
I'll eat the red roosters.
So, but I'm hopeful that one day I'll be able to visit my homeland. But in the meantime, there are issues. In the meantime, there are problems, and I remain optimistic.
Let's remain optimistic. Hopefully, Turkey find its way uh, to the West. I think we all hope that Turkey. I mean, Turkey, to be honest, and Turkey should be a place of love. I don't see any nations around the world really hate Turks. I mean, Turkey can be a great place, great destiny for tourism, for investment, for anything, and all the people around the world really have a positive um, sentiment toward Turks, except the Kurds, the diaspora that the Turkish system really hurt. Other than that, and I see and I hear all the positive things, except the fact that the Turks themselves do not have this positive sentiment toward the rest of the world. I think that's the problem. Rest of the world really see Turkey is one of the great place to go and be and have fun. And I think Turkish, hospitality, history, and if they find honesty in themselves and in their view toward the world, I think Turkey could be a place of love. But now, from the perspective of the Turks and Turkish nationalists, unfortunately, Turkish and Turks see the West, especially with the angry eyes, and if they don't hate, maybe hate is too strong word, but they at least question the intentions of the West and Western people. But I don't think any Western people, any reasonable Western people, think Turkey negatively.
No. I mean, the fear that the government manufactures in terms of everybody is against us is completely artificial. Syrians have no plans to attack Turkey.
Yeah.
Iraqis have absolutely no plans to attack Turkey. Iranians have no plans to attack Turkey. Georgians and Armenians want to get along with the Turks. Greeks and Bulgarians likewise. So, this soccer player saying the world is against us, he lives in a manufactured world. The real world is different.
Yeah, indeed. I think he lives in the Methuselah world, not in the real world. Okay, let's hope end with this optimistic and hopeful note, and see you next week.
Yes, see you next week.